guess in a way you couldn't see any two more different ideologies in 1 week. But there are some linkages, and one of the first things that we'll learn is that conservatism emerged in response to liberalism, in response especially to a particular event that was inspired by liberalism, the French Revolution. The French Revolution was a pretty cataclysmic event in Europe. It was very radical. A lot of people died, and of course it spurred a great war in Europe as well, as the French began to try to spread the French Revolution to the rest of Europe by force of arms. And so conservatism emerged as a response to the French Revolution and to radical liberalism. And what we'll find is that originally it was not so much a coherent ideology of its own as a protest against. And then as time went by, that protest against became more of a coherent position of its own. And so we'll read Edmund Burke first in his discussion of the French Revolution, but we'll also read Michael Oakeshott, who's a contemporary conservative, who's similar to Burke and who has developed the idea of conservatism more in the classical vein. We'll be looking at Reagan conservatism, the distinction between fiscal and social conservatism, Christian conservatism. So there's a variety of approaches that we'll be looking at this week. And then we'll be looking at socialism and communism. Those, in a way, as I said, are very different, but they are concerned with the common good, just as conservatism is, or was with classical conservatism. And we will find, especially with socialism, that there isn't a huge, complete opposition between classical conservatism and socialism, which is a weird concept, I know, but it's because classical conservatism didn't start out as really a champion of just the free market or anything like that, but as a desire to preserve society. Okay. So, but as we move into our discussion of communism, we'll see that a conservative could never agree with a communist, which shouldn't surprise you, because communism is far too radical and too committed to violence in order to obtain its ends, too unforgiving of differences. The classical conservative was big on allowing or tolerating a variety of differences. And of course, the history of real-life conservatism has borne out, or excuse me, real-life communism has borne out that it is in practice a very destructive ideology. So in the second half of the course, after we get past the first part of this week, we'll be moving into territory where the ideologies that we'll be encountering become more and more violent, at least in practice, like communism. Millions of people died in the communist revolutions and the subsequent oppression that the communist regimes undertook against their own people in the Soviet Union, in China, and in Vietnam, for instance, and in Cambodia, etc. And we'll be looking at National Socialism and fascism, two very, very violent ideologies as well, motivated by nationalism and racism. And we'll finish the course with political Islam. So the second half of this course is not pretty, it's not pleasant, but hopefully we'll learn more and more about why it is that sometimes people take up arms to champion an ideology and are willing to kill a certain number of people, if not many, many people, in order to obtain their ideal ends. So with conservatism, we glimpse the reaction to any kind of radicalism, really, when we are studying classical conservatism anyway. All right, so that's this week, conservatism, socialism, and communism in 1 week. Wow. All right, looking forward to talking to you on the message board.